So I want to talk tonight about freedom. And before I say anything, what comes to your mind when you hear the word freedom? What do you think? What comes to mind? Just reflect on that in yourself. What does freedom mean to you? So it's a curiosity. Does the external freedoms come to mind? Freedom from oppression, from obligation, from pain? Certainly those matter. But meditation points to another kind of freedom. It isn't so completely dependent on the circumstances. So the hidden arc of this whole series, these weeks, was building specific freedom, even though we didn't name it that way. So when we talk about safety, it gives us the freedom to regulate our nervous system. When we are talking about awareness, it gives us the freedom to notice. When we are talking about capacity, it gives us the freedom to remain present under difficulty. We're talking about relationship. It gives us the freedom to stay connected without losing ourselves. Last week, when we were talking about identity, it gives us the freedom to be ourselves. So in some ways, freedom isn't a separate topic that's just tacked on now. It's what naturally flowers when all of these capacities begin working together. So it's the bridge between the developmental work that we've been doing and the deeper contemplative realization that underpins it, that's underneath it. So when I was putting together notes for this talk, I came up with different kinds of freedoms. It has many different expressions. So the first one that I came up with is the freedom to regulate, freedom from being overwhelmed or ruled by the nervous system, for steadiness and staying present under difficulty. And we can certainly see when we don't have that, our system is agitated, it's hard to focus, we have very little choice, we're often very reactive. And all the tools that we have somehow are not accessible to us. That's one of the things that happens when we're out of our window of tolerance, is that our capacity to think through things and remember goes offline. So the second freedom is the freedom to notice. It's the ability to move away from autopilot. It's for us to begin to have choice. And so we can't choose when we're not noticing what's going on. Another kind of freedom is the freedom to choose, which is a little bit more sophisticated than the freedom to notice. The freedom to choose moves us away from compulsion and old conditioning for discernment and acting from our deepest values. It's not so much what I feel like doing, but it's more what would serve right now, what would serve me, what would serve others, what would serve the situation. So when we have the capacity to choose from our values, that's a very different position than we're just on autopilot and acting and reacting without being able to consider what our values even are. Then there's a freedom to relate, to engage, to share. It's a movement away from feeling isolated or from feeling defensive. It's a movement towards connection, towards authenticity, towards communication. This is where care, kindness, love, repair live. And then there's a freedom to be ourselves. When we move away from feeling shame and performing, and we move towards authenticity and creativity and knowing what we want to say or express and offering that as a gift. And then we move away from some of these, which are developmental and shaping and sharing who we are as human beings, and look at what happens when we begin to rest our attention and awareness. We can notice so many things are changing. The sensations are changing, our feelings are changing, our thoughts are changing, even our identity can change. And yet, when we are aware of this, we can notice that there can be a lot of change, but awareness remains. So there's a freedom from identifying with every experience and moving back and forth between the actuality of our experience and the awareness and the knowing of it. And then there are many different kinds of freedoms that are freedoms that move beyond our sense of self, even when awareness is no longer experienced as mine. So the sense of the knower disappears. And as the knower disappears, then there's separation disappears. I'm not here and you're not there. There just is an isness, which is different from being merged and not being able to know who I am and what I think and feel, and how that's different from where you are and your thinking and feeling. And then there's different levels of freedom, of boundlessness and boundless awareness, of spontaneous ways in which we can connect with the qualities of love or compassion or joy. Not because we've created them, but because we can recognize more they're innately part of who we are and what we're made out of. And then there's freedom from and freedom for. So it isn't only freedom from fear or shame or reactivity or conditioning or separation. It's also freedom for beauty, for joy, for creativity, for service, for love, for intimacy, for awakening. And so the inquiry is really not so much to position ourselves as where we are on a mountain, and more like, where are we in human development? It's not so much how high have I climbed, it's what is life inviting to mature next? To regulate, to notice, to choose, to love, to be yourself, to rest as awareness, or to let go of even the one trying to become free. And just for context, it sounds like there's a hammer humming on the wall just here. So while you're all sitting in quiet, we are not. Welcome to Mexico. Just when the work ends is when the building projects start. So what I would like to do now is shift gears and invite you into breakout rooms for those of you who are online, and here in pairs, dyads. So it will be a dyad, and it will be 10 minutes each on the question of what kinds of freedom is life inviting you into right now.